I ended up getting dreams that were pointing to some scary stuff related to health. And I had dreams before that guided me in work and relationships and things. But I had a series of dreams about a year before a cancer diagnosis that were showing me something was happening.
Dr. Kim, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me today.
Of course. So why don't we start by you sharing a little bit about what you do and who you are?
Sure. I like to start by introducing myself, given my ancestry, and who I am relationally. I'm a daughter and a sister, a tia to two wonderful nephews, a cousin, good friend, and I also am of Celtic origin and also of Bruti tribe origin from La Silla Plateau in Calabria. So have Italian Mediterranean roots there as well. And I am a dreamer, as you know, also a PhD in clinical psychology, focusing on somatic psychology. Dream work weaves into that, as well as a licensed marriage and family therapist. So I provide psychotherapy in the state of California to mostly women. I focus on women's issues, and that includes women experiencing grief and loss due to relational issues like I've faced with cancer, and a host of things in that area. So I like to look at the unique issues women face in their lives, especially around big transitions. So that's just a little bit about me, and I could share that I'm an author. I guess that's really important to say because my third book is going to be released next month, and that's called Dreaming with the Earth Mind. And there's a lot about grief and loss in that book too.
When you said you're a dreamer and you do dream work, can you elaborate a little bit on that for me?
I sure can. So about 20 years ago, I started to study dreams, try to incubate or cultivate dream experiences, practice lucid dreaming techniques and all of those things. And that really opened up this huge new world for me. I wasn't born a lucid dreamer naturally, like others say. I've been doing this since I was a kid. I can't say that. I can't say that like other people do. But about 20 years ago, I really just started cultivating the skills, because I think all of this really is skill-based, to start to have some really profound dream experiences that really changed my life. Out-of-body experiences were included in that. And the way I grew those skills was primarily through a variety of meditation and focus techniques. And from the experiences I had, they radically shifted my belief system, my spirituality, my paradigm. And to this day, I say I'm a dreamer or a dream worker, but that really is my spirituality. So in my practice, I like to help people grow those skills and also just talk about, how these experiences impact their life, their belief system, how it changes them to the core. And so there's a variety of dream work methods, and I use those with clients. What was a fun, interesting practice and activity really paid off, because after really seriously practicing dream work and having a long-term, well over a decade dream journal, I ended up getting dreams that were pointing to some scary stuff related to health. And I had dreams before that guided me in work and relationships and things. But I had a series of dreams about a year before a cancer diagnosis that were showing me something was happening. And fortunately, because I had been doing dream work for so long and trusted my dreams and all the dream journals that I had, all that data, and I could then, decode it and do like thematic analysis like I did for my PhD, which by the way is on pregnant women's dreams of their unborn and the communications they had and how that informed decision making. But for me, I had all that data to guide me through treatment, telling me what to eat, not to eat, encouraging me to do certain things. Really, most of them were diagnostic, showing me, okay, clogged, pipes or clogged toilet pipes, okay, look at the gut. So then I'd go do Genova tests and GI maps and things like that. So that's just an example, a very quick example that tells you how dreams guided me through health. And then also as a dream worker, I've had a lot of visitation dreams where deceased loved ones, ancestors come and I guess guide me or continue the relationship in that way. So that's pretty much in a nutshell what a dream worker and what dreaming has meant to me in my life over the past 20 years.
When you mentioned the visitation dreams, so you do believe that our loved ones can communicate?
I think that's what's going on. It's so hard to say. Western or scientific mind wants to be more skeptical. My indigenous mind really believes that the death is really just a shift in consciousness, and that there is something happening. Through the dream, we can see a lot of what I'll just say is truth about what we call reality. I like to put reality in quotes. So that part of me, when I kind of quiet down the analytical science mind, that other part of me, that more soul part of me is like, well, yes, of course, those energies, that web is still really connected. So I will sometimes incubate them. I will ask them to come. And I lead workshops on that too, where we have shrines as a dream incubation portal. And, we can go into all that too. But I believe we can still have communication.
Do you think that that some dreams are subconscious and not them, and some dreams are actually visitation? And if so, how can we differentiate the two?
So I've given my students and people I work with in my coaching and therapy practice a sheet that I call the dream theory cheat sheet. And on that is 8 major dream theories, the function and the name and kind of who might be associated with these different dream theories. And so when I have a dream, especially if there's any confusion, I like to run it through all of those 8 different, theories or functions to see what resonates and what could be going on. Because I think it's all of it. I don't think there's just one thing. I think, yes, some dreams are, we're getting memories from the collective unconscious, if we want to call it that, just subconscious things like, from the evolutionary theory, things protecting us, things that are helping us process memory and emotions from the day. And then there's other dreams that have a different feel to them. And I know that's kind of weird to say, just to say they have a different feel. But it was interesting because in my announcing dream research, when I was working on my dissertation, that was the same way the pregnant women described it too. They said, no, sure, this night I had a dream of a baby or some babies. And this night I had a dream of another baby. But I know which one's mine. And I know which one was just me processing mom baby stuff and which one was a true communication. I think when people have visitation dreams, there's something similar. There's just this feel that is very, very different, or the experience of it is very, very different. And so I remember one visitation dream that maybe wasn't. I woke up seeing my noni, which I had seen in many other dreams. But in this dream, I wasn't convinced that who I was seeing was actually her. And so that disturbed me because before that, every time I saw her, I felt like I was having something, some kind of communication or we're actually energetically in the same space. But there was a time with this particular person, this particular deceased loved one that was very important to me, who I said, I don't think that's her. She looks like her on the outside, but I wasn't so sure. It's almost like I wanted to see if there was a dream costume on that I wanted to just kind of rip off. Or, as a spiritual psychologist taught me a long time ago, is to look at the hands and feet if you're unsure if a dream entity is who they say they are, if there's maybe some sinister things happening. And so it's really interesting to be in the dream world because you can look at it very practically. You can look at it spiritually, everything in between. So I don't really like to just have one answer. What I'd really love to do in my dream coaching practice is teach people how to figure it out for themselves and teach people how to thematically analyze their own dream content that they collect over time and to learn ways to process all of it.
I love that. So whenever you mentioned that your dreams helped you find out your cancer diagnosis, were they can you just explain that to me? Because I wouldn't even know how to go about, this could be about a health, so could you go through that with me?
Sure. Let me tell you a little more though about people who had it much more clear. And then I'll tell you my process. Because mine alluded to a lot of other stuff. I think cancer actually was the secondary problem, to be honest. So other people have talked about beings or entities coming, or angel or something coming and saying, here's where your cancer is. This is what it is. Very direct. point to where it is, things like that, or show a bunch of crab, or cancer constellations or things like that. Some people have very direct dreams. Others have gotten hints, where mine were more about, and I learned this through the testing I did, extreme gut dysbiosis in the body. So the blood looked fine, but it was like all kinds of digestive issues and issues that I think were maybe viral. And so I had doctors looking at chronic fatigue syndrome, Lyme disease. I learned later that cancer and viruses, especially Epstein-Barr, have a relationship. Trying to go through all the medical things that I remember. I mean, this was 5.5 years ago. So it's a lot of data. And boy, those first 2 years were like a whirlwind. So then I'm kind of jumping around in time, but I'll share with you something that might get to help with the point. Is in one lucid dream, I just called out to the dream. Well, let me back up before I tell you what I did. So excuse me. So in this lucid dream, before I became lucid, I was walking around in my living room at the time. And at the time I lived in Nevada City. And I recognized I was still, dreaming regularly, I guess you could say, very low lucidity, and just realized, okay, I'm in my living room, and had this feeling that something was outside. And I was like, oh, is it burglars? Is it aliens? I was going between the two, something trying to invade my home. That prompted lucidity. And then I remembered my waking state, or this state, the plans I made, which was to ask the dreamscape. And a friend said, Dr. Claire Johnson, who does a lot of lucid dream coaching, she's over in Europe, but she would say, just address the dreaming mind. So I did. And I asked 2 questions, dreaming mind, what's the root cause? And dreaming mind, how do I heal? And so the root cause actually was the second question. I kind of asked them out of order. But I had this almost like reptile alien-like face, not a cartoon alien, but something that was kind of creepy that actually startled me, and that pulled me out of the lucid dream. But the feeling I had when I woke up was foreign invader and stuff like that. And then when I talked to doctors later, they're like, oh, virus. And then I thought, that's the sense I had. But, I was like, am I making this up? So I would go back to my dream journals and look, and I wrote it very, very clearly. I'm getting a virus information here. And then prior to that question in the lucid dream, because I was lucid enough to have time and awareness to ask 2 very direct questions, was to say, dreaming mind, how do I heal this condition? And that was very interesting because I partly started meditating, but it was almost like my body put myself in this kind of like hovering lotus meditative position. And have you ever meditated in a lucid dream?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. So anyone listening, I would recommend giving that a try. A lot of people have a profound experience. And the couple times I've done that, I'll end up in what we've called a black void. But there's different sources of light and no light, right? Pure blackness is their origin. It's creation. It's where we come from. So I was in the black void, and while some people feel scared there, my couple of experiences, I feel peaceful. And anyway, there was more imagery there, but long story short, I came out of that going, okay, I've been using meditative states and this kinds of silent stillness to guide me through treatments. And that just kind of showed me, again, a reflection or more of that. And so these are ways you can get information about the origins. Because like I said, I got a lot of diagnostic information. That was most of it. And so the primary concern, and this was really, really strange, you go through the grief, right? When you get a breast cancer diagnosis and wonder like, I'm going to keep all of my body, am I going to stay alive? What kind of pain and healing, and so many women, if they take out lymph nodes, you might get, that your arms can get really like puffy and so many things to be scared of. Let's just put it that way. So many unknowns. But the doctors said, and this was really striking, one particularly said, I'm more scared of this other stuff going on in your body than I am of the cancer. And that was related to things people couldn't figure out. Again, extreme gut dysbiosis. I didn't know why. I thought I was healthy enough. I guess my nervous system too, I learned later, was just like very hypersensitive. Those were the primary things that dreaming was showing me a lot of. But earlier on, pretty early on, I had a powerful dream where some friends these were friends that practice Lukumi, and which is a religion of the African diaspora. And they were doing a divination chart and telling me, it's pretty direct, this is related to your health. You you better get on it. It's not, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but you better get on it now, or it might be. And here's what you need to do, but unfortunately I couldn't remember the prescription. I woke up really frustrated. I couldn't remember it all. So yeah, there were some dreams that just pointed to lots of clogged pipes, dirty sinks or waters. I had one where I had the knowledge that, I have to drain the pool, all kinds of things like that. Dreams with catalytic converters, right, which is clogged air, so just a lot of dreams, or catalytic converters make the air, breathable or something. I'm not a mechanic, but that's how it was explained to me. I had to look it up after that dream because I didn't know what that dream, was about. I was like, why does my body need a catalytic converter? A lot of the dreams were quite diagnostic. Then there was, a series of dreams that were guiding me more around food and activity and things like that. So I hope I answered your question. That was a bit of a windy path there.
You did. Do you feel like dreams are always to tell us something?
I do. The late Dr. Reverend Jeremy Taylor said that dreams come in service of health and wholeness. And I really, really believe that. I think they can always be a guiding force. It doesn't have to be big stuff, though. For example, a lot of people, let's talk about precognitive dreams just for a minute. A lot of people think predictive or precognitive types of dreams or omens, always have to be something really big. But if people keep a dream journal regularly, they'll see that even the smallest things might be precognitive. But let's say you have a dream about, a particular looking, let's say FedEx person delivering, a package. And you're like, oh, what did that mean? You forget about it. You go about your week. You don't even think about it. But then maybe a month or a few weeks later, that happens. And, maybe you kind of have a no memory at all, or a slight hunch or a deja vu feeling, but you make nothing of it and you go about your day. But if you're keeping a dream journal and really focus on these things, you might start to see a pattern of how so many things that happen in the day were things that we had dreamt, a day, a week, a month before. So I think it's really, I harp on this all the time, right? I think it's really, really important to keep a dream journal, because if you don't, you won't, there's so many things you'll miss. You won't know how many precognitive dreams you might actually be having. And you might dismiss the tiny odd dreams that might be pointing to a body just very dysregulated or in need of help even, in need of help.
So you do recommend a dream journal?
Highly, highly recommend it. Yeah, highly recommend keeping a dream journal. And it doesn't have to be some, long narrative, thing. It could be, if you need it to be, something as simple as bullet points or a quick sketch. I have kind of like also a little guide to I call it creative dream journaling, your best dream journal. And in it, I have sections for okay, date, time, title, how did you feel when you wake up? What's the first thing you remember? Have a place for a sketch. Write some narrative or bullet points. How will you honor the dream? Things like that. So you can really get into it, but it can be really simple. Just anything to help you return to it and know, I really did remember this. This really did happen in my sleep a few nights before. Because how we are, we'll just write all that stuff off. Our Western minds are so dissociated. We're so disconnected that it's very easy to have an experience that maybe starts to show you the nature of reality and to just write it off because we're so used to just, well, that couldn't have happened. That makes no sense. That doesn't mean anything. All this dismissive type of stuff. So a journal can do us a lot of good. And I feel like I'm living proof of that, because it gave me a lot of information prior to that big diagnosis on warnings and things to be aware of and on the lookout for. And like I said, prior to that, dreams that guided me in job and relationship even. Now, if listening to them is a whole different story, we might get the information, but listening to them, have the courage to do what they're showing the best we can with the best of our understanding. Just because we have them in our dream journal doesn't mean we always do it.
Do you think that our loved ones, whenever they come in visitation dreams, do you think they try to guide us in a certain direction or try to give us information?
Sometimes, sometimes though it's simple, it just seems to be about love and connection. Sometimes it's just a visit. I remember getting on a train through a very different door at a different stop. They came in, go, I want to follow them at the next stop. They say, no, that's not your stop. They go and I keep going. There could be things where you just, like visitation dreams, where you just have a moment of connection, or you're all at the table and everyone's there, even those that, died before I was born, things like that. But because I had heard stories or saw pictures, I was able, to sometimes recognize what's going on. I've had a lot of ones where they've come and, celebrated something going on, or just offered a rose, which I attribute to type of love, or, like, don't worry, we're here, the thing. When we lose someone really important to us, this is a sensitive conversation, because some people want that kind of dream and don't get it. And others don't want that kind of dream and do get it. And then you have people like me who really want those dreams and get them. That's hard, That's really hard if we're grieving and we want to reconnect in that way so bad, but it doesn't happen. Or we have fears and things and we don't want those kind of dreams. Or if a deceased loved one shows up and it's a really scary experience. I think I've been really lucky to have them be good experiences. I want to say I'm probably, a lucky one in that I don't have a negative or scary association with them. But I think anyone listening to this who's interested in visitation dreams just should be aware that they might not come as we want them. They might not be as comforting as we want them to be. But either way, my belief would be to record them, log them. And if we don't want to keep a pen and paper by our bed, we have smartphones now, a lot of us, right? We can just do audio recording and then transcribe later if we want to. Or put it into Otter, the Otter app, and let AI make put it in text for us. So there's a lot of ways if we just don't feel like, writing or, with our hands. So tracking them, though, we can kind of start to see the patterns. But I completely understand if, something is so traumatic related, to the grief and loss of a death that we just don't want those dreams. And some people ask for them to be just kind of shut down psychologically. I was going to tell you about a time when I experienced a lot of loss where I wanted my dreams to stop. I'm like, as I mentioned, I'm on Maui and I'm in the process of moving back to California. But I came here with a partner at the time that I was a long-term relationship. And basically not long after us moving here together, it went south and it was extremely traumatic for me. I was going through some expensive cancer treatments here and not sure where I was going to live. And it was just a really devastating, scary, and very sad, depressing time for me. And I started having dreams. Really, it may have even been I can't remember if it was just slightly before we broke up or right after, but I had 20-something dreams within a 14-month span that I think were helping me process what was going on. But they were so traumatic for me. I cried so much that year after that I probably had red eyes that didn't ever clear. And the dreams impacted me so negatively. Like for the first time in my life, as someone who's a total dream lover and dreamer, that I, just asked the dream consciousness to stop giving them to me. And I could see that the dreams were going from some bad stuff to clearing, showing me like that they were becoming not as traumatically impactful. Even though the dreams were getting more benign energetically or traumatically, I still didn't want them. And so really for the first time in my life, I asked those dreams to just stop. I didn't even want to dream. Grief and loss doesn't have to just come from death, right? It can come from betrayal. It can come from losing an important relationship or, a friendship, all kinds of things, a loss of maybe part of ourselves from, disease process or things like that. If the dreams don't bring us the comfort or the safety or protection we want, sometimes a grieving person just might say, I don't even want to dream anymore. I don't want this. And that was the only year of my life, that was 2023. That was the only year of my life when I just didn't want to dream anymore because the dreams were actually causing me even more trauma from that loss.
When you asked for them to stop, did they stop?
I had a few more, but I don't know if it was because I did or if because they were already kind of showing me a resolution. Like almost like how is my energy and psychology resolving this trauma? Because for me that it was a lot of, I'll just say things happened that were very negative for me and hurtful. So that my life and my dream was just really traumatic. When I did do that, I don't know if they were naturally already resolving, and that's why they weren't as potent and they were spaced out a little more, because it wasn't just like a straight cut, but it also was at the time when they were naturally, again, like I said, lengthening in space and not as potent. So it's hard for me to say for sure, it's hard for me to say for sure, but I do know that people do that sometimes. Mm-hmm. Ask for the dreaming to just kind of not have memory, because we dream every night, but to ask, you process without me having to know, because our bodies do that, right? Whether we remember our dreams or not, the dreaming, the functions of many physiological and biological processes of dreaming is happening. We're processing the day's residue. We're having, memory consolidation, things like that. So yeah, dreaming has served me well in a life of adventure and insight and guidance to help with health, and then to showing me also how, reflecting back to me, maybe that's the best way I understand it, reflecting back to me how my mind and body are resolving the biggest relationship trauma of my life. But after that, I did want a break, and I even stopped recording dreams for a while. I just wanted a break. I had a bit of a dream drought, which is natural. I used to be very hard on myself, like, why am I having a dream drought? I want dreams. People are like, Kim, slow your roll, chill out. Like, to have a dream drought is natural. So yeah, I had some dream droughts, and then also just had some lazy moments too, which is okay as well. Of like, I just don't want to focus right now or be deep in that practice for, a few months or whatever, because there was a lot of other stuff going on. So like I said, I'm in the process of moving from Maui back to California, and just a lot happening. Sometimes at night, we're so exhausted, I don't even do a setup. And that's okay, because if you're too tired, just let your body sleep. And if you're still really wanting dream work or dream practice benefits, you could always get up a little earlier in the morning and do a quick meditation and go back to sleep, and use that as your dream incubation or your, dream setup time. So it doesn't have to be as you fall asleep. Sometimes we just have so much day residue in our mind. It's okay to just let ourselves fall asleep and then start the practice in the morning. But not everyone can do that. And sometimes I'm, just like everybody else, I don't feel like it. I just don't want to, or I'm feeling lazy or something. And you can start it back up, though, at any time.
Do you think that, because I've heard of people say that they were in, say, their friend's dream, and then their friend was they were in the same dream. Is that a thing that can happen?
Yes. And Amina Mara, Amina, Amina, and then Mara, Mara, you can find in social media or online. She does a podcast, and she does a lot of this stuff. So also Melissa Johnson in Australia is someone to look into as well. There's a lot of people that are into this, but those are just a couple names I'll share with you to say, if your listeners or viewers here are really interested in shared dreaming and mutual dreaming and all of this in the lucid space as well, to look up those two names. Just kind of check that out. And yes, I think those are very real phenomena, and that can start to also kind of put cracks in this belief system that we've all bought into about what is the nature of consciousness and the nature of reality. I think these are the types of dreams that start to put cracks in our beliefs about who we are and what we can do. It's pretty amazing. But yeah, definitely check out Amina Mara and Melissa Johnson and their work and their podcasts.
I have seen a few times that you are not supposed to share your dream, or you're not supposed to share it first thing in the morning or as soon as it happens.
That's culturally dependent. That's okay. Culturally dependent. For example, a lot of indigenous cultures have strong dream practices and dream sharing communities, things of this nature. But across the world, there's different cultures and with different belief systems about when, who, and how you share it. Who do you go to for interpretation? An example in a more of a Western esoteric space, when I started learning this stuff, I was taught not to share my dreams and that they were just meant for me. And so for a long time, I didn't share any dreams for years. It was just me and my tiny group, with our teachers or guides, and I didn't share any of it. And then over time, I just started to, loosen up about that and think, well, maybe I can gain from sharing them because there's all these other communities that are talking about dreams at dream conferences and trying to learn what they mean. And so I wanted to gain that kind of, education and knowledge as well of what would it look like if I did connect with a group of dreamers. And so I did that not through the first group that taught me that had very particular beliefs about what you do or don't do, but then I joined the International Association for the Study of Dreams, and that was a really different culture around dreaming. So now I am somewhere in the middle. I'm quite thoughtful, about what dreams I share and don't share. For people, though, who are looking for a dream community and want to learn more about what dreams are and how they can be guiding and helpful, as well as finding a community to share dreams or ask questions, the International Association for the Study of Dreams has a Facebook group. You can also go to their annual conferences, and they do regionals as well. The online virtual annual conference this year is just next month in June. So if you go to asdreams.org for Association for the Study of Dreams, so asdreams.org, you can be exposed to the world's largest, professional dream community and learn more and decide for yourself. There's no right or wrong way to do it. There really isn't. There's no right or wrong way to do dream work. I think you just have to go with, your heart, what's your gut saying. No one's going to force anyone to share a dream.
Right. So you said that you have written some books.
Yes. The first one came out of my dissertation. Was my baby. So after my dissertation, I took a lot of that material and wrote a book called Extraordinary Dreams, Visions, Announcements, and Premonitions Across Time and Place. And in a way, that's a bit of a textbook. It's really resource rich, a lot of citations, and that book dedicates a couple chapters on announcing dreams, but it also covers visitation dreams. And then the second book is called Dream Medicine. That was a really important book. So the subtitle of that is about wellness and consciousness, the intersection of wellness and consciousness. And so Dream Medicine is much more personal. It meant a lot to me because that was about what I went through with dreams and cancer. I was starting to write my second book and I was like, why am I writing this? And then I got the diagnosis and it was like, this is why I'm writing it. So I share all of that in Dream Medicine. And then not only did my personal life suffer a lot of tragedy and hardship for me here on Maui just a couple months after I moved here, but then the following year, so like 10 months or something later, we had the 2023 Maui fires. There are fires all the time, and there were big ones that happened in Lahaina before, but this was the one that took out in August of 2023, took out the entire town of Lahaina, Maui's biggest economic center. And there were 6 fires that day. 2 in the town I lived in, but were smaller. And so I, again, wanted to start writing and made it very obvious, this is what I'm writing for. And it started to make me think that's why I'm here in the first place. I also had made some really deep, very precious and important spiritual community here and started to be welcomed into Dr. Apila Colorado's world. I'll just say that, who does tremendous, wonderful work here on Maui and worldwide with the Indigenous or Worldwide Indigenous Science Network, and started to build relationship with her and learn so much from her through all her wisdom and life, and just it's grown into an incredible friendship. And I interviewed her in that book, and that's called Dreaming with the Earth Mind, Paths to Sacred Activism. And I started to believe that is why I was brought here. I wasn't brought here to suffer in the way I did. I was brought here to do something as a gift, to use my privilege, my voice, my access to a publisher, my ability to live here, as expensive as it is, and to use these privileges and my access to these resources to speak for this place. Because there was so much I didn't know about Hawaii. This is Polynesia, and I know we like to pretend it's a state, but it was a state taken over illegally. And the people of the Hawaiian native people of this Polynesian island have suffered tremendously. And I really have been very humbled in my 2.5 years here. So much I didn't know. I mean, so ignorant of the struggles here. And so I wrote this book that I'm really hoping will just be another voice, just another person trying to share what's happened here, and all the dreams that have just guided me through the struggles of this island, the struggles of the Native Hawaiian people here, and just all the horrible things, all the destruction of the land, the theft of resources, and the dreaming here is very strong. This island, in my opinion, really has a power to it. Really has a power to it. And so Dreaming with the Earth Mind Paths to Sacred Activism is going to be released next month. At least that's what my publisher tells me. And that is full of a different kind of dreaming and a very different book from the other two. I'll just say that. Maybe that's a good way to wrap up the plug for that book. So thank you for letting me talk about those. I appreciate that.
Of course. And where can people find you?
They can find me at consciouschimera.com, and I'll spell that. Or you can just type up my name, Kimberly Mascaro. And Conscious Chimera is spelled, just the word conscious. And chimera is CHIMERA. So consciouschimera.com is my website. I also have the Conscious Chimera Classroom on Substack, where a lot of my blogging on consciouschimera.com is being moved over to that platform, just because it hosts all your audio and video and your writing in one place. So people can find me at either of those. And Conscious Chimera came from a dream as well. So that's where that website name, is complicated as it is. I wish I could have got a simpler one. But yeah, you can reach me at consciouschimera.com. And yeah, I hope to hear from your listeners who are interested in the dream ways.
Yes, absolutely. Dr. Kim, thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it. I love everything you shared. And it was very knowledgeable.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great to talk to you and to just dive into this dream space. I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for watching Lost and Found. If you like this episode, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe below. There will be new episodes every Friday. And if nothing else, just remember that grief is really, really hard. You don't have to do it alone. And I love you. And until next time.